What if everything you thought you knew about building muscle was completely wrong? What if you've been spending hours in the gym every single week, grinding through set after set, and actually getting less results because of it? Today we're going to break down one of the most debated questions in all of fitness, and the answer is going to change the way you train forever. Welcome to Gain and Grow, the channel where we cut through the noise and give you real, science-backed strategies to help you build the body you've always wanted. So if you're ready to stop wasting time and start seeing actual progress, let's get into it. Let me paint you a picture. You walk into the gym. You've got your playlist ready, your pre-workout is hitting, and you spend the next 2.5 hours crushing every single chest exercise known to mankind. Incline bench, flat bench, cable flies, dumbbell presses, push-ups, chest dips. You do 5 sets of everything. You leave absolutely exhausted, barely able to lift your arms. And you do this week after week after week. Now here's the question. Are you actually growing? Or are you just really good at being tired? Here's the truth that most people don't want to hear. More volume does not automatically mean more muscle. And we've got science to back that up. So let's go back to 2017. A researcher named Brad Schoenfeld led one of the first major analyses that looked specifically at how the number of sets you do actually impacts muscle growth. They organized weekly training volume into 3 categories: 1 to 5 sets per muscle per week, 5 to 9 sets, and 10 or more sets. The results showed what's called a dose-response relationship. Basically, more sets led to more growth, with 10 or more sets per muscle per week producing the best results. Now, when this dropped, the fitness world went absolutely wild. Everyone started piling on the volume. If 10 sets is good, 20 must be better, right? Wrong. Fast forward 6 years later, and a new group of researchers did a follow-up analysis that changed everything. This time, they broke it down differently. They looked at low volume, which was under 12 sets per muscle weekly, moderate volume between 12 and 20 sets, and high volume which was over 20 sets. And here's where it gets really interesting. Moderate and high volume both outperformed low volume, absolutely. But when they compared moderate volume against high volume, there were almost no significant differences in muscle growth. Almost across the board. Think about that for a second. Doing twice the work produced essentially the same results. Your time, your recovery, your energy, all of that spent for the same gains you could have gotten doing half the amount of work. The sweet spot based on this research lands somewhere between 10 and 20 sets per muscle per week. That's your target range. But here's where people make their next big mistake. They hear that range and immediately jump to 20 sets because they think more is always safer. It's not. And that brings us to something incredibly important that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Your individual response. Everyone's body is different. This is not just motivational talk. This is literally what the science shows. A 2019 study from the Journal of Sports Science had 19 participants train one leg with 6 to 9 sets per week and the other leg with 15 sets per week. After 8 weeks, roughly 1/3 of participants responded better to low volume, 1/3 responded better to high volume, and 1/3 showed basically the same results with either approach. One person's optimal is another person's overtraining nightmare. That's why cookie-cutter programs that don't account for individual differences so often fail people. You need to find what works specifically for you. And one of the biggest factors in determining where you fall in that 10 to 20 set range is how you actually perform those sets. Because not all sets are created equal, and this is something I want you to really lock in right now. There's a difference between going through the motions and actually training. When you're swinging weights, using momentum, stopping sets because you hit a rep number rather than because your muscle actually failed, you're leaving massive gains on the table. And ironically, you might be doing 40 sets a week and getting less stimulus than someone doing 12 really hard, focused sets. Training close to failure with good form is the game changer. When your muscles are genuinely being pushed to their limit on each set, They don't need nearly as many sets to grow. Your body responds to the intensity of the challenge, not just the quantity of the work. So before you ever think about adding more sets to your program, ask yourself this: am I actually pushing hard enough on the sets I'm already doing? Am I maintaining proper form? Am I being honest with myself about how difficult each set actually is? Now let's talk about rest periods, because this plays a direct role in how much volume you need. Research shows that if you're taking shorter rest periods, under about 2 minutes between sets, your muscles are still fatigued when you start the next set. That means you'll likely need more total sets to accumulate the same amount of effective training stimulus. But if you're resting 2 minutes or more between sets, your muscles are more recovered, each set can be performed with more intensity, and you'll likely be able to generate enough stimulus at the lower end of that 10 to 20 set range. So longer rest periods actually allow you to do less volume while still maximizing your results. Let that sink in. Here's another thing most people completely overlook when counting their sets: secondary muscle involvement. When you do a bench press, you're working your chest, but your triceps and your front delts are also working hard during that movement. In research, that bench press set often gets counted as one full set for the chest and one full set for the triceps. Whether or not that's perfectly accurate is debatable, but what it means practically is that muscles like your triceps, your front delts, and your biceps are already getting a significant amount of indirect work from your compound movements. So they don't necessarily need as many direct sets as a muscle like your back or your quads that might not get as much indirect attention. This is why understanding your entire program as a whole matters so much more than just focusing on individual exercises in isolation. Now, I want to address something that might be blowing your mind right now. Some people in the fitness world swear by what's called high-intensity training, where they only perform one single set per exercise. Sounds insane, right? But here's the context. When researchers count sets, they're typically talking about sets taken close to failure. High-intensity training advocates aren't doing a casual set and calling it a day. They're doing one absolutely brutal, all-out set that they extend beyond failure using techniques like forced reps, drop sets, or rest pause reps. A single set performed in that fashion can produce a training stimulus equivalent to 2 or 3 regular sets. So the debate between low volume and high volume often comes down to how you define a set in the first place. Okay, so we've covered the research, we've talked about individual differences, rest periods, form, and how to count sets properly. Now let's talk about what this actually means for you in real life, starting with the biggest mental shift of this entire video. You do not need to be training optimally to get great results. Read that again. Optimal is not the only path to progress. Because here's the thing about sets and volume. Each additional set you add to your week gives you less and less additional benefit. The first few sets do the heavy lifting, literally and figuratively. Additional sets give you smaller and smaller marginal gains. Research shows that training with 5 to 9 sets per muscle per week still delivers around 80% of the maximum possible muscle growth. 80%. From maybe 3 sets of bench press and 3 sets of flies per week for your chest. That's it. Think about how much time you'd free up. Think about how much faster you'd recover. Think about how much more consistent you could be. And consistency, my friends, is the real king of muscle growth. The best program in the world that you only follow for 3 weeks is infinitely worse than a simpler program you stick to for an entire year. So if you're someone who's been struggling with consistency, who finds it hard to show up to the gym regularly because your sessions take forever and leave you destroyed for days, give yourself permission to do less. Your body will still respond. Your muscles will still grow. You will still make meaningful progress. So how do you actually apply all of this? Here's a simple framework to get you started. If you're a beginner, start at the lower end of the range. Around 10 weekly sets per muscle group is a solid starting point. Split that up across at least 2 sessions per week for each muscle if you can. Focus obsessively on your form before you ever worry about adding more volume. Make sure you're actually pushing close to failure on your sets, not just going through the motions. Rest for at least 2 minutes between sets, so each set actually counts. And track your progress over 4 to 6 weeks before making any changes. If you've been training for a while and your progress has completely stalled, before you add more volume, go through this checklist. Are you sleeping enough? Are you eating enough to support muscle growth? Are you actually pushing your sets hard enough? Are your rest periods long enough? If all of those boxes are checked and you're still not growing, then yes, it might be time to slowly add a couple more sets per muscle per week and monitor how your body responds. And here's the thing. I want you to walk away from this video with above everything else. The gym is not where you build muscle. The gym is where you create the signal for your body to build muscle. Recovery is where the actual growth happens. So more time in the gym does not automatically equal more growth. Smarter time in the gym, with proper intensity, proper rest, and proper recovery, that's what equals growth. You don't need to spend 3 hours lifting every day. You don't need to do 10 different exercises for every muscle group. You don't need to follow some insane program that leaves you crawling out of the gym barely able to function. What you need is focused, intentional training. Hard sets, adequate rest, consistent effort over time. That is the formula. Look, whether you're brand new to training or you've been at it for years, the principles we covered today apply to you. Start where you are. Apply intensity and good form before chasing volume. Find your personal sweet spot within that 10 to 20 set range. Stay consistent. And never forget that progress compounds over time. The gains you make this month build on last month's gains, which build on last year's gains. Every focused rep, every hard set, every time you show up when you don't feel like it, it all adds up. So here's your challenge for this week. Take one look at your current program. Count up how many sets you're doing per muscle per week. If you're way over 20, consider dropping it down and see how your body responds. If you're under 10 and your gains have stalled, consider adding a few more sets. And most importantly, evaluate your effort on each set. Are you actually training hard? Are you leaving gains on the table by stopping too early? This is Gain and Grow, and that's exactly what we're here to help you do. Gain muscle, gain knowledge, grow in every possible direction. If this video gave you something valuable, hit that like button right now because it genuinely helps us reach more people who need to hear this. Subscribe so you never miss a video, and drop a comment below telling me how many sets you're currently doing per muscle per week. I read every single one. The next video is going to build directly on what we covered today and show you a specific training technique that could nearly double your results from every single set you do. You're not going to want to miss that one. I'll see you there.